Welcome to Igniting Change, the podcast where we explore innovation, industry trends, and how tech for good is solving the world's biggest challenges. Let's get into it.
Right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us again for one of our special edition podcasts. I'm joined again by Duncan, our founder and CEO at Three-Sided Cube. Morning, Duncan.
Morning.
And this episode is the OK, what next episode to follow on from our AI report that we published not that long ago. It was the third version of our AI report. So we put that out in the world, and we actually had a webinar event to launch it, and comments and questions that came up were around, AI adoption. How do we actually take practical steps to get there? And we're here to talk today about the toolkit that we're about to publish that is designed to do just that. So to give you a little bit of a recap, the stats from the report said that nearly 90% of the for purpose-led organizations, that's a mouthful, were adopting AI. So it's really good to see that we're the majority of people are on that journey in some way or other, but there's still some work to do, I think it's fair to say. Improvements, lots of people, nearly 3/4 of people that are doing AI are noticing improvements off the back of it. So it's definitely worth doing, but only just over half have an AI policy, and even less than half are involving their communities in putting their AI adoption plans together. So we thought it'd be great to bring together all of that thinking from the panel and thinking from Duncan, who's practically hands-on with AI, developing some AI for Three-Sided Cube on the product side. So we're going to have a chat today about what the toolkit brings, but also get some of Duncan's knowledge in the mix as well. Right. So in terms of the toolkit, it is designed to be something that's practical. People can download it, they can scribble on it, fill it in, and tailor it to what they're looking to do with AI. But I think the first important step in the toolkit is to actually think about the problem that they're looking to solve with AI. And Duncan, you've been doing a bit of this for Three-Sided Cube. Can you give us a little bit of an insight into some of the challenges that you've come up with in adopting AI and using AI for products?
Well, there's loads. That's a big one. I think working out what problem you're trying to solve, right, is a big one. So it can be really small. AI, AI is such a big, title thing, right? And there's lots of little snippets of tools and ways you can go about stuff. Like vibe coding is great for, you've got a little process or you've got a little spreadsheet, or you can just jump in and build something that automates a little bit of your life, right? That's a good entry point for most people, I think, because you get huge return for not much effort. Which is good. You have to think, there's a whole load of stuff you have to think about. You need to think about data. That's really important from a couple of angles, depending how big you're going. So if you're looking to build something internally for your team, what data are you building on? Okay. And is it what shape is the data? Like almost building with AI and data are they're almost the same amount of effort, right? AI can only make decisions based on the information it has. So your data is the information it has. So first point of call, your AI policy will probably say this, but you've got to use platforms that do not expose your data, right? That's probably the big risk factor where things can go wrong. But yeah, jumping in and playing is as long as the data one's the big one, as long as you are not exposing your data, and there's platforms like Bedrock, so AWS Bedrock, looking about and finding platforms that will run models against your data but won't expose it. Obviously, if you run anything locally, then that's great. But that's really your big risk, is you expose a lot of your client data to any model. You chuck a spreadsheet of your client data into ChatGPT and you have the wrong settings on, you're exposing data. So that's the two big risks are data, exposing it, and then the other risk really for NGOs or any purpose-led organization is having AI at the front and giving it bogus answers, right? The wrong thing. Everything in between, you can pretty much play and go crazy. And it's almost like a safe area. So if you're not exposing your data and you're not exposing it to the outside world, it's quite a safe space and you should play quite a lot.
That's something that we're encouraging with the toolkit is to find something internally that you can test and learn with that you could then roll out in terms of what the problem it solves into something bigger for the organization. But there is a step in there as well that talks to what you were saying around that data security, particularly for purpose-led organizations where they might be handling sensitive data to do with people's health or education or whatever that might be. I'm guessing that becomes even more important. And if you're pulling in third-party data as well, how you handle that and deal with that in the mix is also something to consider.
Definitely. And I would start small with problems and play, because half of the journey is working out what can you do and what can't you do. And there's a load of noise, and the noise is ridiculous, and people have different reasons for different bits of noise. The only way you actually know what's going on is to pick up the tools and use them. So doing something super simple, automating the little task that is a bit boring for you, is a great place to just start. As long as you're protecting your data, that's a great place to start. The good thing about, let's say, vibe coding type stuff is you can build your own interfaces on anything you want quite quickly, and it will be roughly what you're looking for. It gets sticky when you try and move the pixels around. That gets tricky, but generally it works quite well. But play first, and then you get more. Then you start to realize, okay, we could do this. Oh, we could do this, and then you'll probably, step by step, getting to the more beefier problems, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's really valid, and I think, do you think without that sort of early part of a process and playing, do you think there's a risk to organizations of not having, not following a process for AI adoption, just jumping in with something massive and it failing, and then going, oh, that's not working, we'll move on to something else? Is there a risk there, do you think?
A huge risk, right? Because most of it is unknown. Most of building with AI is a complete and utter experiment. You are not in a world, which is, for NGOs, is a bit, being frank, is a bit scary. NGOs have to be really careful with the money that they spend from donors. And really what they want to know is, if I spend X, I get Y. That's where they're happy and where they want to spend money. With AI, you're not getting that. You just aren't. There's certain small areas you're getting that. So you want to de-risk it by doing smaller projects. The easiest place that people are starting off with is, hey, if I could automate this piece, it would save me 2 hours a week, 4 hours a week, 2 days a month, whatever it might be. That's low risk, as long as you do the things that we said before. Probably not a huge project, maybe something you do on your own. You learn a load of, practical ways of doing it. And then you, as you get more confident with it, and some things are going to work really well and some things are not, but as you get more confident, you can then take more risks. But it is going to be a stepped approach, going, unless you're really certain, or your confidence level is much higher, it's too risky to just go, well, we think this will work, we'll do this thing. There's just so much untrodden ground yet to be done.
Yeah, that's really fair. And I think one of the things that we spend some time on in the toolkit is thinking about those measures. And it could, in fact, we're advocating it for it to be quite small, like, hours saved, or, process documents not needed, or whatever that looks like. But we split it up into 4 areas around human and community and environmental. So sort of to give it some context around what those measures might be, but to keep it quite bite-sized initially, so that you can start to build a bit of a case and just almost prove it back to yourself that it's having an impact before you even go and start talking to stakeholders and looking at a wider rollout across the organization. But yeah, your advice around starting small, I think, is really sound.
And I think the other big one is around people's perception of the world. Let's say I'm a marketeer. I can just do marketing. That's all I can do. I must stay in my lane. That's pretty much how 90% of us kind of think. These tools allow you to jump into other lanes, and you should jump into other lanes, and you should play with it. One of the biggest boundaries is going to be just mindsets of people being willing to jump into that. That's hence why we did our hackathon with the whole team. Like, anyone that wasn't, we're obviously a dev team, but we got everyone involved: marketing, HR, we got ops involved, the whole team. And they were terrified. Some of them were terrified to start with. Oh my God, I'm not a developer, I can't do that. The ones that weren't developers, I think, created some of the best things. And it really helped helped with the mindset shift of, so if I need to build something, I don't necessarily need to start with, the dev team. I can actually go, if you think before you used to write on a scrap of paper, or you used to, maybe write a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet. Now you can actually just build a rough prototype of what you want. For some smaller jobs, that will just work. For bigger jobs, you can see the concept and you can play with it, and then you can give it to a team to deliver. But mindset's a big one. For the people jumping on this journey, there'll be like leaders in this that will happily jump in and happily experiment. But for most of an organization, they are going to be, this is my lane. This is what I do. I use Excel. I use whatever, Excel is one of the best tools ever invented. It may not be around in 10 years' time. It might be replaced with just building your own things rather than you using that stuff. I'm not saying Excel will go away, because my guess is Excel will stay around till, in 2000 years' time, Excel will still be around, but it's that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I think certainly for, the feedback we're getting from the sort of smaller purpose-led organizations where they wear many hats, the ability to be able to think out, so, do a bit of marketing and a bit of development and a bit of creative work using AI just means that they can get, like you say, almost like 50%, 60% of the way there with an MVP that then proves the concept that you can then get more support for. So, and I keep coming back to it, but there's a step in the toolkit for that, where around creating MVPs and, using AI to help you get there and then scale it up from once you've got it.
Nice. I think this is going to become a bigger thing, something that we learned, in the 2010s, was big. It was really difficult for, bigger NGOs to innovate. And they kind of found a bit of a way to do that. They would create their own like innovation hubs, or they would partner with others. The smaller organizations are going to have a massive advantage because there's less of that mindset. There's more of that scrappiness. There's more of that wearing multi hats. There's more of that we just need to get it done, right? So, they're more like a startup, if you like, because they are generally startups. So the bigger organizations at the moment have a huge amount of risk. So they are going to be slower to adopt this. And I think it's going to kind of hit a bit like a whiplash. So nothing. And then it's all of a sudden going to be really fast. Holy Christ, like we are quite a way behind here. What do we need to do? I think it will be like that. So it's if you're in a bigger organization, I think trying to work out how you create an environment, which I know the toolkit helps with, create an environment to allow you to do those experiments. And definitely you can go kind of semi-crazy internally, especially if you're not exposing your own data. So you can do a lot of internal kind of stuff before you start getting confident and then putting it out to the wider world.
Nice. Yeah, I like that advice. In terms of those success measures then, from the experience that you've had, other than it saved us time, what other things are you starting to see that AI can really help with?
Oh, it's massive. It is huge. And we are really at the early dawn of that. And there's almost like, it's overwhelming. It is overwhelming in terms of the possibility. But you can now do stuff that you could never, ever do before. So you have this code that thinks, right? And you can, if you give it just a little job to do, take this concept and build me a project plan, right? That's like one little job. Well, you could then go, cool, design me what that looks like, build the code, test the code. You could be like, look into my emails and like, okay, I want you to pull out whatever you want. You can pull out, I want to join, if you think about in organizations, they have tons of software. All of it does anywhere, depending on how well you bought your software, anywhere from 40 to 80% of the job that you want it to do. And then that last 20% it doesn't do, and you have to kind of fudge it between it and all that kind of stuff. There's a new paradigm where you will be able to get data from multiple systems. You'll be able to bring it up. You'll be able to make decisions kind of quicker. So there's just so much opportunity. It's ridiculous. We'll definitely, how long it will take us to do different jobs, I don't know. It's not going to happen as quickly as they are saying it's going to happen, but we will be doing different jobs. We will be doing jobs, but we will be doing different types of jobs because there's just, it is a huge shift in what it can do. Basically code that thinks, right, is huge. Nice. And you can put loads of layers of that, and you don't have to, if you put, So the possibilities are kind of a bit mind blowing and endless.
Then,
For us internally, we are working out what are the big boys going to try and eat. So they are going to go. So what they can eat is what they have access and data to, and they will eat everything in that path, and they will have a long list of stuff that they're going to build. So the things I think for organizations are, what's our unique thing, right? What do we have that
right.
no one else has and no one else has access to? And each
Mhm.
organization will have a different viewpoint on that, and it will all be data.
Mm.
Whether it's documents, whether it's data sources, any of that kind of stuff. We talked about for years that data is really important, or data is king, or whatever. It's really everything now. It's is the piece of the pie. So yeah, there's kind of like a world of things that could be built. It's quite exciting. I think.
Okay, so I'm going to pick up on that. So you mentioned everything. So one of the things that's come up, and one of the sections in the toolkit is around guardrails. Meet
Yeah.
from WWF talked about things that they wouldn't touch with AIs,
Yeah.
particularly around wildlife photography and things that we really core values for that particular organization. Are there other examples you can think of where we guardrails would be needed, or that things shouldn't necessarily be touched by AI? What's your thoughts?
God, yeah.
Another big question.
That is a big question. I think AI is going to destroy a load of things. It's already destroying my inbox. It's already destroying recruitment becomes really hard with AI because everyone can use AI to look exactly the same. So how do you differentiate? The only way is to bring them into the office and talk to people. Crazy. So yeah, guardrails is really huge, and it's like a document, right, that you are forever adding to. But working out what you don't want to do, working out the areas of, for most NGOs, there's risk. So what risk do we not want to take? For a large part of NGOs, exposing AI directly to end users is risky. So that might be one of the guardrails that you have. So you could use it for internal stuff, manipulation of photos, like there was with the early days of the internet, and, bringing kids online. And, there was a lot of bad things that we created over the last 20 years with the internet, right? A lot of bad things, as well as a lot of amazing things. That's going to be exactly the same with AI, but I think there'll be more bad things than there were. It will be easier for smaller teams to build bad things. So building almost a guardrail list is almost like your risk management piece.
Interesting.
To developing anything in AI. And as there is huge opportunities with AI, there's huge risks. The major risk, so you might be like, well, let's not do it, or let's wait. You can definitely take the wait option. We're not going to take the wait option because there's too many risks with the wait option. Being first, if you were first to using social media, right, you could do a lot with it, and you got a lot for free, and you could grow a lot of things. So being first into an area could be pretty interesting. I think the other thing is, that NGOs can really help with is these big organizations spending huge amounts of money are looking for those good stories. And there isn't a huge number of them. So there's real opportunities to get in front of these big partners to be able to do stuff like that. Like we jumped into I think it was last year, we were looking at using LLMs for sign language. And doing translation of sign language, for sight, being able to read there was a great app. I think it was like Be My Eyes, where people could be their eyes. Now, with machine learning, you can kind of see that stuff. So there are lots of good usage. Most of the commercial world will care about making money, right? So the good users won't make money, but they'll make good marketing. So it's about looking for those opportunities early, I think. But the guardrails it's your risk management to AI.
Yeah. But I think if I'm understanding you correct, it's about not using that as an excuse to not try and not experiment.
But that's the good thing about guardrails, right? It's like it's a framework to play in, and you want to play, but you don't want to play and do stupid things, right? Expose all your clients' data to that's going to be horrendous, right? So having guardrails are like a framework. If you've got a framework, you know what you can do, and then it's like, cool, the rest, go play. Because you are going to have to say, go play. You're not going to be able to do be constrictive. But, if you think like security is a good one for a lot of organizations, if you're doing internally and you're only exposing it internally and you can only get access it from your own networks, you kind of bypass the security layer because you're in that sandbox that you're happy to play in. Guardrails let you play, I think.
And so thinking about, the last step in the toolkit is around rollback. So if you end up in a place where either the AI tool that you're building isn't potentially for good and you want to, perhaps park it, or, if you've got to the point where it's not solving the problem, it's causing more problems than you thought, then what about rollback? What could that look like for NGOs and other purpose organizations?
And that's a tough one. I think you've got to prove it early, right? I don't think NGOs are going to want to be in a place where they rolled something out publicly and need to roll it back. You want to create, part of it is creating a safety net externally. So I think big NGOs might reduce their risk by partnering with smaller NGOs and letting them test out and prove concepts and then scale those concepts up. That saves you from doing a rollback. I think we're a way away from big organizations taking that level of risk, NGOs in particular.
Yeah.
I think the commercial organizations will take that risk.
Okay. So
I think you don't want to be in a position where you want to roll back. If you're internally, that's cool. You've got more stuff. It's about reputational damage, right? So internally, if that comes down to testing, right? And risk management in terms of who do you roll it out to? So they just roll out to the entire organization, right? Roll it out piece by piece, like gain the information back, tweak, like de-risk it by how much, and then you might have to go, we need to hold here, or we need to pull back. And then I think if you're doing it internally, it's like stick a beta sticker on top of it. Be clear that this is from an experimental point of view and that we're here to learn and we're trying to get that. So de-risk it from a perception point of view, I would say. Then it's easy. Then rollbacks become easy, right? Because the expectation is it's a play about, we're experimenting. You can do a bit of that externally, but it becomes pretty risky and hard, I think.
Yeah,
you can do it with small groups, right? So you could do it with like groups within the organization that are pro-organization or want to help out. So you can roll functionality out to those groups and then you can capture the data and then you might want to just slowly, I think you just want to be more methodical and more careful how you roll out and the steps you take. So step. Don't just go boom and then go, good, oh God, now what we can do? Because that is not, you can roll back from it, but it's not a pretty rollback.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, that advice around testing it internally with a group that are kind of bought into the idea of doing better things, but also something that comes up a lot as well is around the sort of potential lack of community engagement that's going on at the moment to do with AI and bringing people in a bit earlier. And I think picking up on what you're saying, if you were to do that at scale, so you might bring a few representatives in from the community to help to give you early feedback in that internal stage, whilst you're testing and learning. That feels like a lot less of a riskier strategy than rolling it out, like you say, to the community and them going, oh, that's not what we thought, or whatever that looks like.
Or whatever risk. Because I mean, the thing with AI is you can you control less of the variables.
Okay.
That's the problem. With previous software, you control a lot of the variables unless you start getting, user comments is a variable you can control, right? And traditionally, NGOs would have not wanted that. Do you know what I mean? Or they know the risk in terms of that. So it's a variable that you can't control. But yeah, community engagement is your safety net. It's your, okay, we've got this group, we can roll it out. They're not going to hate us. They're going to give us good feedback. We can then decide how we adapt what we're building and moving forward. So yeah, community engagement is a good de-risk tool, I think, as well as the right thing to do anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, 100%. Cool. Well, Duncan, that feels like a good place to draw together our toolkit discussions and start to think about the quiz, which I know is a highlight for you personally, but also for Crystal on our marketing team who puts these amazing quiz ideas together. It's definitely a highlight for her. So I'm going to ask you some questions to do with the toolkit. And for each answer you get wrong, you'll be asked to pop a marshmallow into your mouth and then carry on being able to talk. So it's on you to like do well and not have to do the forfeit.
Can I just say, I feel like I need HR on this call because it does feel like some form of bullying, passive aggressive
Victimization.
Like I don't see. I'm not sure the point of these, but somehow I get into it. But we did say next time you're doing it, right? Whatever
I
it
think
is.
that's only fair. This is like the third go round now, and we have dressed you up in taco hats and now the marshmallows thing. So I think it's only fair that it's my turn next time. Yeah.
Good.
But HR can't come to the phone right now, so we're just going to have to crack on.
Tricky.
Okay, right. So I'm going to ask you some questions. Here we go. Are you ready? So we talked about this already, but what percentage of purpose-led organizations have integrated AI to some extent?
So I know 50% have an AI policy, give or take.
That's the next question.
Integrated AI. I think it's in some shape or form. I think it's quite high. 75%, 80%.
89%. Oh, okay.
I realized I was actually going to go 70, 80, 90, 100% or something.
Right. Just reel off a load of numbers and hope one of them was right.
Brilliant.
First marshmallow. Right. Here we go.
Difficult.
Right. I'm going to give you a bit of a buy. So you've already got the AI policy one right. So that's fine. You're doing well. So Brilliant. The community stat then. So what percentage of the people we spoke to in our AI survey rarely involved affected communities?
Right. I would say between 10 and 20%, somewhere between there.
46%. Unfortunately, that's not the right answer, Duncan. But then we'll call this the last question then, because you've done very well and you're a good sport. So do teams need to do all of the 6 steps in the toolkit in order to implement AI responsibly? What do you think?
Yes.
Well, actually, we put no, because,
I said no first. That's surely my first answer. I just changed my answer because you looked like you were trying to help me. Surely, you've got to take my first answer.
Very bad. But no, so we said, so obviously the toolkit is a guide, right? So you can use bits of it. If you're already part of the way there, then you can use the bits you haven't already experimented with, but it's not like one size fits all. So you can use the bits that you want to use. But Duncan, I'm going to say, thank you. You've done very well.
I'm going to kill Crystal. I'm surely within my rights to murder Crystal. That's fair.
We won't do that on camera, but
next episode.
Okay. All right. Cool. Good. Well, I'll say thank you, Duncan, for joining us. Thanks for being a great sport. And yeah, it's been very interesting to talk about your experiences with AI and also the wider thinking around what people can do to implement AI in their NGO and for good space. So thanks very much.
I'm just going to use hand signals now.
Yeah, fair. I can appreciate that. Right.
Nice.